Welcome to the Endureus Project. My name is Chris, aka CJ Media, which you may know from YouTube or Instagram, where I post and make videos about my journey of balancing life, raising two girls, a career, as well as trying to achieve goals such as running ultramarathons and triathlons. Currently, I am training to try and qualify for the Ironman 70.3 World Championships in 2022, and in about 5 weeks, I will be racing Ironman 70.3 Arizona, which I am super excited to see how far I've come since 70.3 Oregon in July. So if you don't follow me, you can check me out on YouTube at CJ, that's CJAYE, Media, or Instagram. I would love to have you follow along. After a lot of consideration, I have decided to bring my podcast back. I used to call it the CJ Show, but I am renaming it to the Endureus Project because I've created the brand Endureus to represent enduring this beautiful planet, the mountains and the ocean and all of its beauty. And Endureus, I felt, really embodied that. And my goal with this brand was to give everything that I made from YouTube, from Patreon, from all of the product sales of Endureus products to a different charity every month. So I thought it would be great to represent that brand with a podcast and introduce many of you to so many wonderful people that I get to meet on a regular basis. Because of my YouTube channel, I meet some incredible, inspiring, motivating people. So I am super pumped to start to bring some of those conversations to you. Real quick before we get started, the music you hear in the background is from an artist named Lowlight, and the song is called Never Lost, and I really enjoy this song. So if you're interested, I'll play more of it at the end of this podcast. But now let's get into it. I am super excited to introduce the first Endureus guest. It's Katie Bishop, a friend of mine who has been helping me since Ironman Oregon lose weight. I came off of that race just really struggling. I was 206 pounds and fighting to figure out the amount of nutrition, calories, macronutrients, what I needed to start to drop some weight before my next race. I reached out to Katie, who is amazing. She is fit. She is super healthy, and she stepped up to the plate and has been helping me. She analyzed my weight and my activity and set me up. And I can say, since I started with her 6 weeks ago, I am down 9 pounds. So I am super excited to introduce all of you to Katie Bishop. All right, well, we are recording, and I'm excited. This is the first Endureus Project podcast. I actually asked Katie what I should name this podcast, and she gave me her opinion. How long have we known each other?
Probably about 3 years, I want to say. 3 or 4 years.
We met at the Catalina 50-mile 50K. You were over there on the island, and I think it was, I can't remember if it was 2019 or 2018.
Yeah, I want to say 2008. Oh, no, that's in January. So it might have been the very beginning of 2019. Somewhere around there. Yeah. It all blends together.
Well, anyways, but Katie has become a good friend, and I've always kind of picked her brain a little bit about nutrition here and there. She also has been a fitness coach. I'll let you talk a little bit about your history and all of that. But for those of you who watch my YouTube channel, you'll know that I've been struggling probably the last 6 months where probably 6 months ago, I was about 14% body fat and weighed about 199. And slowly I've crept up a little bit and been fighting with my diet being pretty much all over the place and feeling like I just couldn't get it under control or start getting smaller and smaller from the standpoint of losing body fat and losing some size, just to reduce some size overall for doing long distance events. So I started picking Katie's brain and we started working together. So how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to be on the first ever Endureus Project podcast, which was a fire name, by the way. I did not come up with the name at all. I didn't come up with it at all. You gave me two. I'm like, I like the project because it kind of means like this. But yeah, it's a great day. Very opposite of the weather you have there in California today. We are 68 and cloudy, which is what people think Seattle is always like.
I know I'm sitting here in my garage. I was telling you right before we started recording, I'm sitting here in my garage and I think it's 89 degrees in my garage. It's kind of like a little sauna here. And she's up there in cloudy, nice, cool Seattle.
Yes, for today at least, so.
Yep. Now, for those who maybe haven't been watching my my YouTube, I've talked a little bit about your background being in nutrition and fitness, but I guess let's go back and give us a little bit of your history as to what your background in nutrition and coaching and all of that has been.
Yeah. So when people ask me about this, I always like to just give a little brief explanation on how I got where I got and what got me interested in nutrition. So growing up, I was a swimmer, runner, which you'd never guess because I'm very short. I'm like 5'2" on a good day. But that's what I did growing up. And then all through college, I actually wasn't a very active person. And then I got back into fitness probably when I was about 21 years old. Moved to Denver, which a lot of people know Denver, Colorado, Boulder area is like the mecca of running. And that's where I got into long distance running. And I probably did marathon training, distance running for about 5 years while I was there. Ran my first marathons there. And then when I moved here to Seattle, I transferred over after some injuries to more of the CrossFit realm and did more trail running and CrossFit. So eventually CrossFit is always known for, CrossFit people think of, six pack abs and used to be tall socks, I was not that person. I got into CrossFit and we call it in the CrossFit world the blank bar, right? So it's when you're holding the barbell and there's no weight on it. I couldn't even finish a workout with a blank bar. So I was very strong as far as when running came. I had good stamina, but I was not very strong muscular, I guess, if you want to say it that way. So that's how I got into CrossFit, yada, 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 which then kind of turned me over to health and fitness and nutrition and everything. So, and then I kind of went through my own little transformation, so to speak. I was, working full time, going to school full time, just a really crazy work schedule, kind of like everybody here in the world today. And I gained a lot of weight, even though I was working out, probably like 6 days a week. And I was just stressed out and anxious all the time. And I had to leave. There was one day I had to leave my desk at work 2 times because I just broke down crying. I was just had an anxiety attack, basically, So that's when I actually took a demotion at work so I could get more time off. And I really started diving into my health because I was like, something's not right. I'm eating the right foods, I'm exercising, but I don't really recognize myself in the mirror anymore. So that's when I got into nutrition and macros. And then I had a lot of success with that. So then people at the gym started asking me for help. And one of my boyfriend at the time actually said, you should look into nutrition. And I was like, oh, that's just telling people what to eat. I don't want to do that. That's what a lot of people think nutrition is, but there's so much more around that. And I took the best leap of my life, and I decided to go to Washington, D.C. to take this course that took a deep dive into nutrition. And my education and my background, I took anatomy and physiology and microbiology in college, and I was going to go into nursing and did really good in these classes, but then didn't really nursing, just after hearing friends who were nursing and job shadowing, it just didn't fit what I wanted to do. And then when I went to this nutrition course and they started explaining more about nutrition and we started talking about hormonal health and, reverse dieting and all these other things, I was like, a light switch went on in my head and I was like, oh my gosh, this is that aha moment of this is what I've always wanted to do. And when you get that feeling where you're just like, I could fucking crush this, I could crush this,
This is my calling.
Yes. I had that and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, so I took that course. It was a really in-depth course. It was great. We had to work with clients, 2 clients afterwards for, I think it was for 90 days. And then we had an avatar client that they assigned us as well. So we had a written part and an actual real world part, right? So we had to actually report. We had to take on 2 clients. We had to report everything, our macros prescription, why we were doing it, what the setbacks were. And then also they gave us an avatar that they had created. And we had to diagnose, so to speak, for lack of better words, that client and do a nutrition prescription and the whys behind that. So that's a little bit of my background, I guess. And then I also have gotten some certifications for personal training, lifting, and things like that. But I really enjoy working with everybody, with athletes, it's just, that's my dog. You'll hear him on and off. Hopefully it's not
he
more
seconds
than that.
that.
Yeah. So I really enjoy and thrive helping people just kind of break through their plateaus, as far as if they're already into macros and have been doing working on nutrition for a while, or if they've never done it in their life before and they don't know. Samson. Sorry, guys. And if they know nothing about it. So, and it's just fascinating. There's always more to learn. And then currently I'm doing an internship at the University of Washington, working on nutrition with another coach for the football team with the athletes.
Yeah, that's exciting.
So, yeah, it's really exciting. So
that's a whole different level of athlete that you're working with.
It is. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. It's really cool. It's a really great environment to be in. So.
Well, cool. Well, yeah, I mean, I think through us chatting, I was obviously comfortable with you and just could see your results online. I think it was not that long ago, you did a Spartan as you're rocking the abs, 6-pack abs. I mean, just looked super powerful.
Yeah.
And we got to chatting and I was telling you my issue, essentially, this dilemma, the battle that I was having. And, for me, it became, I tend to, when I get stressed about trying to lose weight, I tend to create a huge calorie deficit. I go, right, and I just cut, and it's like, okay, 2,000 calories a day is what I'm going to eat. And, I'll do that for a week or so. And all of a sudden it's not making a difference. And then I'm kind of off of the diet, frustrated. And then I'm back on and off and not really ever doing anything long enough to figure out, okay, I'm staying where I'm at, I'm not losing or I'm gaining, or, as many times as you read athletes don't eat enough, especially endurance athletes, it's really, I needed that confirmation and working with you to look at where I'm at and to, well, one, say, hey, we're going to start here. We're going to do this for this long. And then we'll make changes and kind of that accountability, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody goes through that. Like you kind of hit the nail on the head where you put yourself in a deficit because people think, it's easy, like calories in, calories out. I'm just going to reduce my calories and I should lose. And they don't realize that historically they've been in a calorie deficit. Or it's also really common, for athletes and high-level athletes who've been on a certain macro prescription for a while to become metabolically adapted to, as they kind of have plateaued and they're not seeing the results that they want to anymore. And that's where you really have to look at all the different factors too that are coming into play as far as like environment, lifestyle, the quality of the food, and things like that. So.
Yeah. And especially I think it's one thing when you work out an hour a day. I don't know. Sometimes I think you can be a little less stringent on what you're intaking or, but when you're burning potentially 1,000, 2,000 calories a morning working out, really starting to understand. And for me, I have to track it. I mean, that works best. I really need to, at least for a while until I gauge, like I went into Ironman or half Ironman Oregon at the end of July. And I did that race at 2:06. Mm-hmm. And so I know I was probably up a little bit from 14% body fat, but I also had put on size because I was lifting. And so from that point, I got back from the race and we started working together. And you basically gave me the plan. You looked at what my goals were, which is losing size, right? Muscle size, fat. And in my mind, I had this goal of 180. I don't know if that's where I end up, but I was 206 and I know I wanted to get smaller. I wanted to get smaller, just to carry less in the run. I felt like it affects me the most in the run, in a triathlon, in swim. And my size doesn't, I don't think, matter as much. I think muscle, if you have too much muscle in the swim, you can be using up more oxygen than needed. But I think on the bike, there's not as much of an issue. Maybe with big hilly courses that you might have some there. But it's that run when I get off the bike and I'm carrying 10, 15 more pounds of potentially fat or muscle, whatever it is, right? Just being lighter helps.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so psychological too, right? Part of it. It's definitely physical as well. And I absolutely 100% agree with the running part. And also it's like psychologically too. It's like when you pick up a 14-pound med ball or something and you start running with it, you're doing the carry something and then you let go of it and you're like, and then you do another run and you're like, oh wow, like this is how much extra weight I was carrying, right? Right. You can kind of feel that in physical terms of like how much lighter you are, or especially when you're doing something like on the lines of gymnastics or, crosses up toe to bar when you're hanging from the bar. There's lots of different times where it just feels better to be a little lighter, so to speak. And a lot of times that's just, it's body composition as well. So.
Right. And I'll be the first to admit when I was doing just CrossFit, being the size that I am now, right? It's like, hey, I don't care how big I am. I want to be big, right? But then all of a sudden now I'm doing triathlon and I'm at the finish line with a couple other guys. And even though we're the same speed, I feel like I look like an ape standing next to them, right? They're smaller frame. They're not as broad. And so then for me, psychologically, it's this, man, I'm so big. So whether it's affecting my performance or not, it's affecting me mentally in that from that standpoint.
Yeah, and they're probably like, God, look at Chris. I wish I was like Chris. It's like it's such a backwards concept that we.
I know everybody wants to be where they're not, right?
Exactly. It's like us. We're like, we have straight hair, we want curly hair. All these different things. But yeah, it definitely plays into it, and it's so ironic that endurance athletes, triathletes, all these. I do believe that it's a lot of people are under eating and just don't actually realize how much fuel they really need. I was just reading this morning, and it's every 60 minutes you go through. I think it was one gram of carbs, which is 4 calories every minute in a 60-minute ride if you're at 70%. So just think about that. If you're riding for 2 hours, 120 grams, and they're showing that, if you consume between 40 to 60 grams of carbs throughout that, that your times come down too. So you are not come down, you add on, you have 47 more minutes of better energy than if you were not to fuel yourself through that. So you have more output. So, you hear a lot of people be like, yeah, the last 10 miles I just died, and granted, you just did a lot. So the last 10 miles should feel hard. But it's kind of when you go from being underfed to being fed. I remember when I was doing CrossFit and I started my macros and I was like, oh, this is so much food. And that's so common, right? That's what you said with the, this is so much food. Are you sure? But then my workouts, all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel so much better. Like this is still hard, but I actually feel like I have the energy to do it, which then when you build more muscle mass also goes to output as well. So you can exert more too, but you have to have the fuel to do that. And we have to consume during and after, not just after, because if we're only consuming after, we've already depleted the glycogen stores, and it's what we're refueling with afterwards often isn't going to be enough to refill those again. So.
And I think I only really realized that during a race. It's funny how I can underfuel in a 2-hour bike, come home and I'm tired, you kind of eat whatever and you're back to working out the next day. But when it really registers is when I do a race like Oregon. I came off the bike and did not have enough calories. And had I got off the bike and not had to run, I wouldn't have noticed that I didn't have enough calories. But the fact that I got on the run and was immediately cramping and, it was very obvious I hadn't fueled enough. Salt. Right? Yep. And so I think, and just overall, you don't realize how much better you feel when you're fueling correctly. I think the month leading into Oregon, I was kind of in this panic mode of cutting calories. I've got to cut size. I need to lose 6 pounds. I want to get back to 199. And I was starving myself, but then thinking there was something else wrong with me, right? I'm 1,800 yards into what should be a 3,200 yard swim, and I can barely turn my arms over. And it's like, man, I need to go get my blood work done. There is something wrong with me. I know there's something wrong. And no, I'm just not eating near enough. I've been in a deficit for 2 weeks of probably 1,000, or probably more than that. Probably if I was eating 2,000, you've got me eating 3,000 now, and I'm in a deficit now. I was probably 1,500 calories a day deficit, right?
So you put yourself in above severe. I'm glad you're here with us today, Chris.
And it was getting worse, just progressively and progressively and progressively worse all the way to the race. So I went into that race mentally, very unhappy with where I was, doubting my abilities, because leading up to race day, my workouts were going terrible, right? And so after that, I think what's funny is I show up there and I ate for the 2 days leading up to the race and just tried to consume. And then I had a pretty good race, but I went into it fueled. But when I got back, that's when I reached out. And so I was 206. And essentially you put me on 2,800 calories, which you felt was still a little low, but you wanted to bump me up slowly, I think.
Yeah.
Bump me up slowly. And immediately, so it's probably been 7 weeks, I think, or so we've been working together, and I was 206, and I weighed in August 1st.
Is when we gave you your first, and then we did your second increase August 19th.
So August 1st, it is only September 10th today. Yeah. So we're like 6 weeks in, right? And so I was 206, 6 weeks later. Workouts are amazing, right? I'm recovered. I'm feeling great. I feel like I'm going into workouts and able to train, and I'm fueling properly, right? I have the confidence to, because you've told me you need to be taking this many calories per hour, right, of workouts. I have that confidence that, okay, I need to be doing that and then eat the rest of the calories throughout the day. And I weighed in yesterday at 194.7. So I'm down almost 12 pounds in 6 weeks.
And that's insane, right? And that's through increasing your calories. So let's not forget about that. Everybody who's listening right now, don't go be like, oh, well, I'm eating 1,300 calories and Chris is eating 2,100. Let me bump it up, because it's very individualized. Okay. Right. So Chris and I was joking with him because I nerd out on this kind of stuff. So I spend a lot of time, I have knowledge, but then I also spent more time looking up other things as far as what could be beneficial for him. So it's not a universal approach, which is why people reach out to nutrition coaches and dietitians, whoever it is that you reach out to, because it is a very personalized approach. So it's not with like high level athletes like yourself. It's not just a universal approach, right? It's not just energy and energy. It is energy and energy out in a certain way, but you have to fuel it properly. And we're going to keep increasing your calories, and then we're going to bring you back down not into a deficit again, but we're going to bring you back down to a good spot for you to be competing at. But the fact that we keep increasing your calories and you're still losing weight is really proving the point, right? So,
yeah, 100%.
That you needed some extra calories, so.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because I think I was scared of the calories, but then that first week or so, it's like, oh, this is going to be a lot of food. And now at this point, I'm like, nope, that's not a lot of food I get to eat today, right? Because you adapt to it. And I'm trying to eat as healthy as I can. I mean, with a busy schedule, I use some microwave rice bags here and there, right? And
you have to do it.
Yeah, and I think what I really liked is certain nutritionists. It's like, here's your meal plan. This is what you're going to eat every single day, and it's kind of like a different thing each day. You got to you go to the store and shop for the week. That's just not the way it works well for me because when I have kids, I'm in the office. I'm not in the office. I'm traveling. I'm not. So I don't really have a good control of what per se I'm going to eat fish for this meal, or I'm going to eat, but what I can do really well is plan ahead. And I think that's been one of the biggest things that's helped me. It's like, okay, I have this many carbs, I have this much fat, I have this much protein. I'm going to try and kind of spread that through the day. I do front load some of the carbs earlier in the morning with the workouts, but I can kind of plan my day. And now I don't have to do it because I'm 5 weeks in, I'm getting used to it. But those first 2 weeks, I was planning tomorrow kind of before I went to bed. It's like, okay, this is how much chicken or fish or whatever I'm going to have during the day, just so you start to get a feel for how much you need. Because I really had no idea what is 2,800 calories look like. Mm-hmm. How much is 350 grams of carbs, right? So I think having the macros and doing the planning, on my side, not necessarily you telling me eat sweet potatoes, but me doing some of that work to figure out throughout the day has worked really well for me.
Absolutely. Being prepared or just having an idea in your head, like you're talking about, of where you're going to go is key. And I posted this on my Instagram the other day. It was from the guy who the founder of the course that I took for nutrition, but the first thing you have to realize and you have to talk to clients about is how bad do you want it, right? And sometimes it's like you have to be realistic with yourself, and you're like, okay, like I tell clients all the time, like I could be a lot more cut right now if I wanted to. I could be more like defined with my muscle tone and everything, right? I know what it takes to do that, and I've done it before, but right now in my life, I realize that that's not that important to me, and there's other things that are more important to me, right? Like actually like having fellowship with my friends, like that I've kind of ignored that the last couple of years, because I've just been so driven with my career and being, working out, being an athlete, staying healthy, things that, all these things that I kind of ignored that. So now I'm kind of taking my focus and focusing more on everything that fulfills me, but also like when people, they have these images in their head, that they're just going to get these macros and everything's just going to be magic from there, right? And they don't realize that it is hard. Nutrition coaches, like we're not magicians, we're guides, right? That's the best way to phrase it. We're guides. We can help guide you and give you information, but we can't do the hard work for you, right? So that's all you. So kudos to you, because I want to point out to everybody listening that this success is definitely a two-way street. So a lot of this is Chris and how he plans his days out. Like you just heard him talking about how the night before he's thinking about it. That might sound stressful to some people, and it can be, but I can tell you, and I'm sure, Chris, you might agree with this, that the more you do it, the easier it gets. It might seem overwhelming at first, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. The more you're working with those numbers, the more you understand what it takes. Chris and I have calls. He's you've been doing this for a while, so I don't talk to you as much about this, but with some of my other clients, we're going through, okay, you're a little low in protein here. Let me look at this meal. Okay, let's add more protein, to your breakfast. How can you do that? Okay, let's add a couple hard-boiled eggs, or, for your snack, and, let's do like hard-boiled, there's like little ways, like where you can fit in more protein without it and then once you find those little key things that really help push you to that next level, you're like, okay, sweet. Now tomorrow I know what I'm going to do. So it does take work on both ends, and that's what coaches are for, that we're here to help guide you. So,
yeah, I think what I always tell people when they ask about it, because it does seem complicated. I think you're definitely a lot closer to it, but I'm fairly close to it. And the thought of macros is not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. But years ago, when I first started thinking about it, it was very complicated it's like, God, how do I figure out how many grams of carbs and how many grams of fat? And luckily there's tools like MyFitnessPal and things like that, which in my opinion make it really easy. And the one thing that I always think works really well is trying to do the planning ahead of time, put the meals in there, and I'm adjusting them, right? In the very beginning, it's like, okay, I'm going to have 4 ounces of chicken here. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, I can't have any protein for dinner. Well, that didn't work, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, so maybe I should be eating 3 ounces of protein here. I should be eating and you just kind of start to get a feel for, I need a scoop of peanut butter here, or let me get some avocado. And you're slowly starting to figure out, okay, so that worked today. I'm just going to replicate that for a week. I'm going to eat the same exact thing every single and some people are like, oh my God, how do you eat the same thing every day? Well, now 2 or 3 weeks later, I'm getting a little more flexible with it, but I know that what we started with, 2,800 calories, it worked really well. It became very repeatable, which is the easiest part, right? If every single day I'm questioning what I need to eat, so now I kind of have my base. I eat the same thing for breakfast. I eat, kind of the same thing for lunch. Dinner's really flexible. But now that I've done it long enough, I can wing it a little more.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really consistency over everything, right? So and that's what I was going to say too, when you were going into your race in Oregon, like you put yourself into a big deficit, a month or a few weeks before. And then also before that, you're kind of bouncing all over the place because psychologically you're like, oh, I need to lose weight. I need to cut calories. Oh, but I'm not eating enough. Now I need to eat more, right? It's when we can actually be consistent and we're not playing whack-a-mole, so to speak, that you start seeing those results. So at first you may think it sounds boring, but then you may realize, oh, this actually takes a lot of stress out of my day because I know what I'm going to eat for breakfast on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, And that's how I use, and it saves time. And that's how I used to prep when I was prepping, when I was going into the office more. I would prep for Monday through Thursday, just the first 4 days. And I would prep my breakfasts, my lunch, and then once I would leave my dinner open so that I could have a little bit of flexibility, but I would have things prepared in my fridge that were healthy options. Like I'd have one protein that was prepared. I'd have a carb source like rice or sweet potatoes or pasta, whatever, you want it to be prepared in my fridge, so that when I did get home, I had those healthy options, but I didn't feel so restricted to where I'm eating every single meal of the day out of a prepared container. So,
right.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that planning did for me is it set the expectation mentally as to this is what I'm eating tomorrow, and this is what I have along the way, and I'm going to spread it out, and I'm not in this. It's 2:00 and I haven't eaten since 10, and now I'm starving and I crash, or it's having that plan. It's like, okay, it's 10:30, I need to eat this. It's 12:30, I need to eat this. It just at least forced me to get on the schedule, and it helped me not, because that's where I would fall victim is all day long till dinner. I'm great, and then you get home and I've undereaten throughout the day. I've been great, right? I've eaten healthy, but then you get home and it's just like, I'm going to destroy this pantry, right? Everything in here, I'm going to eat. So, and there are days where, and I mean, part of that is we're getting there, right? We're continuing to slowly increase my calories, but as I've eaten more and continue to lose, I'm getting hungrier. Right, for that first couple of weeks, eating 2,800 calories. And it was 2,800 calories during the week when most of my workouts were an hour and a half or so. Now I'm up to pretty much 2 hours a day. And then on the weekends are my longer days. And those are the days when we started, I was eating 2,800 calories and then 3,000. And now it's 3,000 and 3,200. So we've started to push it up, and slowly, adding that extra couple of hundred was like, oh my gosh, more food. But now that 3,200 is gone, and I'm like, I'm still hungry.
Yeah, exactly. The body starts responding because it knows it's responding. That's great. And so I should go into this now. So that's what we call biofeedback. So, Chris and I, we're in touch almost every day, basically. But most of the time it's Instagram because he's posting something super inspirational as usual. And I'm like, man, I need to get after it. But I'm like, hey, how did it feel? How was your recovery? So So what Chris is talking about right now, we refer to as biofeedback. So biofeedback is more important than the scale. So biofeedback it's basically markers for how your body is responding to either the caloric deficit or the extra calories, basically. So biofeedback, I'm looking at, are you hungry? Do you feel like you're stuffing yourself? Which this is why we increase macros slowly. And I'm not just like, hey, you should be eating 4,000 calories. You're eating 1,800 to 2,000. We're just going to jump. Just start trying to hit that, Chris. Like, you can't do that. So you're going to start experiencing negative biofeedback. So let's talk about good biofeedback. So we're checking like, how is your sleep? Not just like how many hours did you sleep, but how's the quality of your sleep? How are you feeling during your workouts? How are you feeling after your workouts? How are you recovering? When you're eating, do you feel like you're shoving food down your throat, or are you hungry? Brain fog. Do you have brain fog throughout the day? Bowel movements. These are all sex drive. These are all really important things that we're checking. And that's a lot of times what you have to remind clients, because we get so caught up and they're like, oh, well, they wake up in the morning and they're feeling just fantastic and they're ready to take on the world. And then they step on the scale. I'm guilty of it. I just did this to myself the other day. And then they step on the scale and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to apologize now to everybody listening. I'm trying to clean up my language, but you're probably going to hear me throw a few curse words here and there. So we step on the scale and we're like, fuck, because you're like up like, like 2 pounds, 3 pounds, or maybe it's like 5 pounds, When weight goes up that quickly, it's probably going to come off just as quickly, okay? But also, you want to look at how are you feeling? Like, did you sleep really good? Awesome. Like, don't let it derail you, to where you're just like, well, now I'm not motivated anymore, right? So that's the one thing I always check in with clients who are super obsessed with the scale. I'm like, if you're getting on the scale and you feel great, like you're like having a good morning, you get on the scale and you notice that scale is starting to deter your motivation. So it's like you woke up super motivated, but then you got on the scale and then you're like, well, shit, like the rest of the day, I don't really care. I'm not going to give everything to my workout because it's not working. I'm not really going to adhere to my macros because it's like clearly not working. Stop weighing yourself, put the scale away, and I want you to just start keeping track of, you're going to rate your days 1 through 3. You can't pick a 2 or I say 1 through 5. You can't pick 3, right? Because 3 doesn't give me any information. 3 is like, you're just like coasting, you're on autopilot. Nothing's bad. Nothing's good. Like, so it's 1 to 5. Like, and you're just going to start, are you just going to use a smiley face or a frowning face? Like, how did you feel today? How was your workout? Smiley face, frowning face, flat line. I showed up. It was fine, and you're going to rate things that way, like your sleep and stuff. Like, you know what? Like, oh, my clothes are starting to feel different. You might set, that's like 2 people who weigh the same side by side. I'm sure you've seen pictures of this online. They can be the same exact weight and look drastically different, right? So body composition is king. Okay, yes, the weight on the scale does come into factors when we're doing certain things like running long distances. Yes, it would definitely be nice to be a little bit lighter, just also for your skeletal structure, your joints. But we have to have muscle to power you through and to keep you strong during those workouts too. So to keep the energy those times, right? So it's not all about being fast has everything to do with strength and body composition. So.
Right. Well, we had one of those moments a couple of days ago for myself as well, which is always nice to have Katie in my corner, because literally I sent her an Instagram message with my weight and 3 of the little curse word emoji, red face guy dropping F-bombs. And, I left for, last weekend, I went away for a few days to the beach with family and friends, and it was I've been on really tight for 4 or 5 weeks or whatever, and it was like, okay, go, and I'm going to train hard. I trained every single day, probably a little more than usual, and it's like, I'm going to have some cocktails maybe, and I'm going to have some cookies or some dessert, and I'm going to eat whatever they make, if it's spaghetti, and I'm just not even going to really worry about it. And came home on Monday and just kind of started to get back on the schedule on Tuesday, and I weigh on Wednesdays. I've gotten to the point where it's like I'm only weighing once a week, because seeing fluctuations has a huge mental effect on me, right? It just, if I'm 197 and then tomorrow I'm 198, and then even if the next day I'm 197, just seeing those fluctuations drive me insane. And that causes me to react. It's like, oh my God, I gotta eat less today, right? And not stay on track. And that's one of the things which I'll come back to, you can remind me, but is that the calorie counter doesn't magically reset every single night, which is kind of something that I've had to learn. But it also simplifies life when you don't think of it as it's 2,800 calories, or you're trying to adjust every single day based on the exact amount of work you did for that day. Which you can get into the habit of doing when you're on something like MyFitnessPal, and it tells you, yes, you burned 400 calories. You have 400 extra calories to eat, right? And then tomorrow you burned 300 calories. Well, and you're constantly in this mode of trying to eat what you did that day. And so I want to come back to that. But anyways, so I came home Wednesday morning, left on Friday weighing, or left Wednesday before 197, came back home on the following Wednesday and was 201 pounds. Right. So almost 5 pounds, 4.5 pounds heavier. And I just about lost it. Right. It's like, holy crap. Right. How in the hell, even though in my mind, I know that it's not possible for me to have put on 4.5 pounds of fat, most likely in 3 days. Right. Where, with 4 cocktails and a couple cookies. Right. But in my mind, I'm just like, holy crap. I'm halfway back to where I started. What the hell's going on? And you talked me off a ledge. And then the next day, so that was Wednesday, I weighed 201. The next day I weighed 194. So, which it's just hard to imagine that my body was retaining that much water. And then I weighed again today just to make sure that it wasn't right back up to 201, and it was actually 194 again. So all in all, I'm down, like I said, almost 12 pounds. But I lost my shit for a 24-hour period. Yeah. And that's usually what would have happened, is that would have just gone south, and it'd be like, screw it. I'm up. Then I'm going to have McDonald's. I'm going to have dessert. I'm going to drink, I'm going to drink. Let's open a bottle of wine.
Yeah. let me make a wine float.
Exactly.
Screw it. And that's so true. Like, that's why we need a safe place. Like, we joke around about it, but it's very, very true. And I go through the same things, and I have to be like, okay, Katie, what would you tell your clients? Like, and it is important to be able to be self-critical, yes, because we do need to be able to hold ourselves accountable sometimes. But when you notice that, again, like I mentioned earlier, you're playing whack-a-mole because your emotions are just all over the place and you can't stay consistent to anything, reach out to somebody. That's what nutrition coaches are for. That's what your friends are for. That's what, if you're working with any other coach, ask them for a recommendation if they don't do nutrition. That's what we're here for. And I have my own coach. Like I had actually the person that I work with nutrition out. He's, I would say, so to speak, like my mentor. He did coaching for me. And when we were going through the pandemic, because I was doing that, I was playing whack-a-mole. I was like, I can't go to the gym, even though I'm being active. Like, I definitely can't be, I probably shouldn't be eating the amount of calories I was eating when I was in the gym. And like, I was just all over the place. I was a mess, and then I was like, Kyle, I need you to help me. Like, please, so we all have those moments. It's normal, and hopefully we have them less and less, right? Because now we have the education, but also more importantly, one of the really cool things about working with macros for a while, or just a healthier plan, is we know how to get back on track quickly, right? So lots of people have those fluctuations, and they go, and you should enjoy time with family, right? With friends. Like, you have to have that spiritual time too, right? Because we have that time where we're on, but we need that time to just like refuel our cup, basically refill our cup, right? And most of the time when I'm like counting macros and making sure I'm hitting it hard, like, that's not refilling my cup. Like, it's keeping me motivated and keeping me fueled, but it's not emotionally and like spiritually like filling me back up, right? We have to have those times or you're going to be derailed, right? Now, maybe it's not that time to have it, like, 2 weeks before your race, or that's when you really, really want to be on, right? But again, going back to like the great thing about working with a nutrition coach or with somebody in general on macros or whatever method you decide is best for you is that it takes the stress of deviating out of things. You stop stressing, or you should anyways. You shouldn't be stressed out about going on vacation and being like, Katie, what should I eat? What should I bring? It's great to plan, but you should already have that. You'll already have that knowledge. And then when you come back, even if you did gain a few pounds, it's quick to come off because you know what to do. So you're not stressing as much, right? I have to grab my computer charger really quick.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I'll go back to real quick while you're doing that is the getting in that mindset where you're chasing the day's calories. And that's what I think something like My Fitness Day can get you in trouble with, where you, or My Fitness Pal can get you in trouble where you did a 30-minute walk or you did a swim or jog or whatever, and it's putting your calories in there, right? And so then you're on a daily basis, you're kind of trying to chase that calorie intake where it doesn't reset every night. Right, my 2,800 calories doesn't just magically reset. It's an average, right? So that average of eating is what has helped me a lot, right? Because regardless of, I average this much calories or this many workout minutes per day. So that's what we target. We don't say today's 2,700, tomorrow's 2,800, the next day's 2,900. The only days we do that with is we do a little bit more on the weekends because I am going 3 and 4 hours. Yeah. But you've really simplified it and kind of created the average. And I just eat that every day. And I'm not chasing a different calorie goal every single day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where consistency comes in again too, right? So Chris has an average Monday through Friday, and then we actually increase the overall average on his longer training days. So there is, again, like a personalization to it, unique to each athlete, because those numbers are always going to vary, and whatever type of sport you're doing, it's going to vary a little bit. But having those key numbers, and I always tell people they're a target, right? So we're always going to be, a few grams over, a few grams under, here and there, but it's a target. And if you're, like we've been talking about, consistent in hitting those, you don't have to have major fluctuations all the time and doing severe cuts and things like that. You don't have to go into extended periods of time doing these types of things. And that's really where it all comes into play at is, again, consistency is king. You can't beat it.
Yes. In all things.
Yes, exactly.
In all things.
In all things.
That's what
Brushing
I'm practicing.
Your teeth,
I posted
cleaning your house.
I just posted the other day, consistency in 5 areas right now was meditation, working out, nutrition, creating videos, and sleep. Right? Those are 5 areas I'm focused on at the moment, and just get those consistent and then add something else. And, there's a whole list of things I'm consistent at, but these are the 5 I'm focused on. And once those are under wraps, then I'll grab, add something else.
Yeah, exactly. And 5 is a lot of areas. So that's great. Most people are like, well, 3, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, obviously I've had success and I've been talking about you on my videos. And so Katie and I are in discussions on her being on regularly on this show. So she can be the balance to you can hear my
obnoxious laugh and cursing and nutrition knowledge.
Yes. Well, it works. So if someone is interested, obviously, if you're on my YouTube channel, any of my recent videos, I've been plugging you on Instagram is where I've been pointing people. But where can people find you if they want to reach out and contact you?
Instagram is probably the easiest way right now. I do have an email set up. I've had people DM me, direct message me on there. I also have my email. I'll make sure and go back and make sure that my email is linked on my Instagram. And then my email that you can reach me at is bishop.katie, Katie, the letter M like May, bishop@gmail.com. So bishop.kdm@gmail.com.
And on Instagram, you're Katie M_Bishop, right?
Yes, because there are so many Katie Bishops. It is
it's just such a generic name.
It is. I was like sitting there for like 30 minutes because, I used to have Coach KB. That was my handle. And that probably would have been easier for people to find me. But I was just trying to personalize it a little bit more. And I
Coach
stepping
Kettlebell.
away from that. Yeah, Coach Kettlebell. I know, right?
That's what I used to think when I'd see it.
Yeah, everybody, right? And I'm like, it's my initials. And they're like, Kettlebell. I was like, oh, fuck. Like, oh, you're right. But it worked. It was easy. It was easy to remember. Yep. But now you just got that basic running. So.
Well, cool. Well, hopefully, obviously some people reached out to you from seeing the videos, and I've seen a huge success, and just, I appreciate just the interaction, right? It's not something that we are scheduled to do or that is required. It's just real natural. We just kind of touch base, it's like, how are you feeling? Feeling good. How is this? And it's just a really easy flow of information, and knowing that I can just ping you when I'm about to put a hammer through my scale.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have that. I mean, maybe we do. I don't know.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
That sounds good. Thanks, Chris.
It's the coldest hand that run down this land where the ocean lands. It's the tallest sound, the damn smallest crowd, but their hearts break loud. Far from ever feeling lost with me, I'll push you back towards the land and sea. Let going down for love, and love is free. Stick with me and I will guarantee you're never lost among the crowd with me. Never lost among the crowd with me. Everywhere you go I'll be.